We're so excited to have you with us. We are in the fourth week of a teaching series called Friend of Sinners, Friend of Sinners. And I love this series because really this series is really just exposing the heart of our church, but it's bigger than that. It's not just the heart of our church, it's really exposing the heart of Jesus. I love the church. In fact, I got a t-shirt on today that says, Church, a hospital for sinners. We say here at Hope Church that we want to be a hospital of hope for sinners, for people who are hurting, a hospital of hope for those that are in need of something. It says, not a museum for saints, right? That's not the goal. The goal is not to have a place where we talk about the things Jesus once did in our life. We want to have a place where we be part of something where we're talking about what Jesus is doing and the life change that he's bringing and the hope and the healing that he's bringing to our life. And so again today, I just pray that you can experience whatever it is that God has you for, because I know it's going to be powerful. Throughout this series, God has been doing so many amazing things, setting people free from labels, from their past, showing people his great grace and mercy. It's just been amazing. And if you're a guest with us or tuning in live, we're just glad that you're here. If you're with us today in-house, you're getting an opportunity today, or even if you're watching this later during the week, to experience some of our new technology. We got some new cameras that we've put in place, and I know some of you had just been chomping at the bit to see my big face in HD your whole life, and so I just want to kind of give you a couple shots today to kind of let you see all of it in its full HDness, right? And so the reason why we're doing that, many of you know, is that we are preparing to launch our second campus in 2019 over in Mebane, and we are just so excited about what God has in store in Mebane and taking this message of hope to another community, to another area, still right here within our county, but to expand our influence. If you're interested in more information about Mebane, many of you have been asking about what's going on. I want to tell you about two dates, two really important dates. One is October the 14th at 6 o'clock p.m. in our Student Hope Auditorium, and one is at November 4th at 1 o'clock p.m. also in our Student Hope Auditorium. We are calling these our Mebane interest meetings, and this is going to be an opportunity for you to come to hear the who, the what, the when, the where, the why, and how you can be part of what's happening in Mebane. If you would like to do that, I would encourage you today to take out your app or go to the website Hope, the number 4, Mebane, hopeformebane.com, and just go ahead and RSVP to one of those dates. The 6 o'clock p.m. on October the 14th, we're just going to have some coffee and refreshments. And at 1 o'clock p.m. that Sunday, on November the 4th, we're going to have some pizza and drinks afterwards. And so we're just going to be able to plan for your arrival. Just really, really excited about what God has in store for Mebane and what's to come for our church. Many of you are obviously here today, and I'm not, and so you're wondering where I am. And so me and my family right now, we're actually down in Orlando, Florida. We are on vacation, a vacation that we've been planning for about 2 years. We've been saving and planning and getting ready for, and so we're down, pulled our camper down, camping down at Disney World. And many of you are like, that doesn't sound like a vacation to me, right? But we're down there on a family trip, enjoying some time together. And as I was preparing to get ready for this message, just kind of in the heat of packing and getting ready for Disney World, I started thinking about just some of the trips me and my family have been on, specifically to Disney World over the years. And I was thinking back to about 8 or 9 years ago when we first started to go to Disney World with our kids. And many of you, if you haven't gone to Disney World, you can just translate this over to going to another amusement park or being somewhere. You know what it's like. Sometimes you have all these ideas about what the day is going to look like and having this grand trip, and then you get there and there's all these people and there's long lines and it's hot, and you find yourself with your kids sometimes having like a Tom Hanks moment with your kids, right? I've been there before, I've done this. Or I'm looking at the kids and I'm like, there's no crying at the happiest place on earth, right? There's no crying in Magic Kingdom. You can't cry here, but secretly, I just want to cry, right? I'm tired. I've been walking all day. I'm sick of dealing with whiny kids. I just want to have a snack, right? I just want to sit down somewhere, right? We've all experienced something like that. And so again, I remember being there years ago, again, about 8 or 9 years ago, the first time going there with kids. And I remember I was standing in long lines for a really long time. And I remember as we're standing in line, and I'm standing there, and I'm miserable, and I'm hot, and I just want to get in some air conditioning, and I want this line to be over. I'm watching people just bypass us and go right straight to the front of the line. And I'm like, well, what is going on here, right? So I'm standing in line, and here comes some more people, and they're all smiling and happy, and I'm looking miserable, right? And they're just going right to the front of the line. And so I'm thinking to myself, like, somebody better call Walt right now and tell him that there are people breaking in front of us in line, right? And people are like, well, Walt's dead. I'm like, wake that joker up, man. Like, something's going on here. There is an injustice taking place in Disney World because people are breaking in front of us, right? I mean, you ever been there before? You ever had somebody, come on, you ever had somebody break in front of you in line, right? You were like, I want to choke you in the name of Jesus right now, right? Like, this is not cool, right? And then I discovered something. It took me a little while to figure this out. The reason why these people were bypassing us is they had this thing called a fast pass. And I was like, well, what's a fast pass? How do I get me a fast pass? And so what I discovered is there's a little band, and I actually got one on today right here, and it's called a magic band. Some of y'all know what this is, right? And this thing is actually magical. It really is magical, right? It's Disney World. It's magical. You actually hook your credit card up to this, and it's dangerous magic sometimes, right? And you can just go to any store, anywhere. You just swipe your wrist, and it will charge your card, right? It's your room key. It is your ticket to get into the park. But what it also offers you is for every person who has this magic band, they get something called a fast pass. You get 3 fast passes that you can pre-reserve the day of your arrival coming into the park. You can basically make a reservation for an hour time slot. And again, many of you know this. You've been there before. You get this, right? And so what it allows you to do is if you come within that hour, you get to just walk to the front of the line. You get to go from being the back of the line up to the front of the line. So let me just tell you something. So now when I get to Disney World, like when I go this week, when we go to Magic Kingdom, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to be strutting with my magic band. I'm going to be walking by, waving at everybody that I'm passing, right? And this is the truth for all of us, right? Now, when I was over there on the other side of the line without the fast pass, I was bitter and judgmental, and I was hating all the people with a fast pass. Now that I got a fast pass, I don't care about any of those people standing in line, right? Because now I got a fast pass, right? And so we've been talking about this through this series, right? We are so justice-minded people, right, when it comes to justice, but we're so grace-minded when it comes to ourselves, right? We've talked a little bit about this. We see other people and we're like, hey, you, back of the line. But me, I deserve to go right to the front of the line, right? We really believe and think that things should be different for us, that life should be catered to us a little bit differently for our life. And we could all be honest, we all struggle with those things. The problem with this way of thinking, though, if we could be honest, is this idea of being people who receive grace but don't really give grace away. The problem with that is that it has impacted our theology. If you were to come into the church world, and some of you have experienced that, some of you know that it's so easy to come into this mentality. We have this issue with our theology if we look at things and we say, it's just not fair. It really gets into this conversation about this issue of grace and forgiveness and mercy. And so many of us struggle because we'll look at somebody else and we'll say, well, it's not fair that they get forgiveness. It's not fair that they receive grace. And why is it? Because at the core we're thinking, well, I didn't do something as bad as them. I haven't committed that awful crime. I haven't committed that awful sin. It's just not fair that they get grace. It's just not fair that they get forgiveness. It's not fair because I haven't done something like they have. It reminds me of my kids. And if you got kids or grandkids, you know this all the time. My kids are always saying, it's just not fair. I hear all the time, it's just not fair. Dad, it's not fair she gets this. Dad, it's not fair he gets to go there, right? And sometimes as a parent, I get really, really upset because I'm a parent and one of my kids will say, it's not fair. Why do I get to do that? And I'll look at them and I'll say, because I love them more than you. Now, I don't really mean that, right? And they'll look at me and they'll say, no, you don't. And I'll say, exactly, I don't. It's just not fair. Sometimes life isn't fair. That's just the reality of the situation. And some of you are those hovering parents. And you're like, well, I don't like that. I want it to always be fair, and everybody should win, and everybody should get the same grade, and everybody should get a... Life isn't fair. It just isn't fair. So let me just get to our story today so I don't stay on this wild tangent. So if you have a Bible with you today, I want to look at a story today in Scripture that if you're someone who struggles with fairness, you're going to say, well, this isn't fair. And so if you have your Bibles, go ahead and get to Luke chapter 19 today. I want to remind you, if you don't own a Bible, that's our gift to you. You can stop by the Next Steps area today. We would love to put a free Bible in your hand. If you want to follow along with your Bible app today, you can do that as well. Or if you want to follow along at home or in-house, all the notes, all the scripture will be right there for you. We're going to begin in Luke chapter 19, beginning in verses 1 through 3. It said, Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. A man there by the name of Zacchaeus, he was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but because he was short, he could not see over the crowd. Now, can we just give Zach a little bit of grace today? Because Zach has a physical ailment. He's got a physical condition. He is vertically challenged. Now, do we got any vertically challenged people in the house today? Could you just raise your hand if you would consider yourself someone vertically challenged? Okay, you might need to stand up because we're having trouble seeing you this morning, right? And so we like to pick up people that are vertically challenged. We have someone here on staff, Marsha. We like at times to give her a hard time for being short. We'll be out in the lobby sometimes, and Marsha will be standing right beside me, and I'll be like, hey, has anybody seen Marsha this morning? I'm having a hard time finding her today, right? And I really can't make fun of anybody because growing up my whole life, I've always been one of the smaller people. Growing up in school, I was always one of the smallest kids in class. And so I know what it's like to be vertically challenged sometimes. And so growing up, up going to a private Christian school. I can remember in elementary school they were having a play when I was in kindergarten, and it was a play, guess what, about Zacchaeus. And so who do you think they picked to represent the little short guy, Zacchaeus? They picked none other than me, the star of the show, the little short guy, right? And so I wish I would have a picture for you today of little Tad walking out with his little Zacchaeus beard and his little Zacchaeus hair and his little Zacchaeus purse, which will make sense to you in a little bit. But I remember walking out on stage, all my friends there, all my family members had showed up, all my grandparents, and I got to sing this song. And if you grew up in church, you are very blessed to know this song that I'm about to sing. And it says, Zacchaeus was a wee little man. Come on, church. And a wee little man was he. He climbed up in a sycamore tree for the Lord he wanted to see. And as the Lord passed through that way, he looked up in that tree. Come on, church. And he said, Zacchaeus, you come down, for I'm going to your house today. For I'm going to your house today. Now, aren't some of you think, I didn't grow up in church, and maybe you feel like that was like a cursing on your life, but right now some of you are believing that was a blessing from God, right? That you didn't experience that. And so what we discovered about the story, let's get back on track, is that Zacchaeus is a chief tax collector. I mean, this is a really bad guy, right? He's a thief. He's a crook. He's an extortioner of his own people. We talked a few weeks ago that during this day, Jews hated tax collectors. And this guy isn't just any tax collector. He's a chief of all tax collectors. I mean, he's like a really big dog in the he's a really small dog in the tax collecting business, right? But this is what he does. I mean, not a good guy at all. A guy you look at and think, this guy right here, this guy doesn't deserve any attention from Jesus. He doesn't deserve any grace from Jesus, right? But today, what we're going to learn today from this very valuable, very crooked, very bad man that we will look at and call a sinner, we're going to learn some very valuable lessons from him. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to pull out the program we gave you in your seat when you came in. I want you to get out your ink pen because we gave you an ink pen today. You go ahead and click that. I want to hear everybody clicking that. Click, 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 click. Let's get it out. Let's take some notes together today. And I want you to write down some things that we can learn from Zacchaeus. First thing is this, is that he was determined to see Jesus. He was determined to see Jesus, right? He's got this vertical challenge, right? He can't see Jesus over the crowds of people, but he just wants to catch a glimpse of Jesus. I just want to see Jesus. And you have to feel like maybe inside of him there's this turmoil, right? Like, I got all this stuff. Scripture says he's a very wealthy man, right? But maybe like many of us, he's kind of like, I've got all this stuff. I got a profession. I got wealth. But I'm really just struggling to know who I am. I'm struggling to find real purpose and real meaning and worth. Just maybe this person, Jesus, has some answers to the questions that I have within me. Maybe Jesus just has something for my life. Maybe Jesus can give me the peace and understanding that I'm longing for, that I'm looking for. I wonder how many people around us that we pass every single day. We go to work with, we go to school with, we work out with, we ride the bus with, we share a cubicle with, whatever the scenario is. I wonder how many people around us secretly just want to see Jesus. Now, we look at them and we sum them up, right? We're so quick to look at somebody because of their attitude or their actions. We're so quick to look at somebody and we sum them up and we judge them based on what we see on the outward without really knowing what someone's desire is. I wonder how many people desperately desire just to see Jesus for who he is. And we walk by them every single day of their life. See, here's what I believe. I believe it's not hard for us to show people Jesus. The issue is that many of us just need to get out of the way. We said a few weeks ago that we should never make it difficult for people that need to get to Jesus to be able to get to Jesus, right? Maybe for some of us today, maybe some of us are kind of like the crowd of people that were keeping this man from getting to Jesus, right? We're keeping Zacchaeus from getting to Jesus. How many of us, because of obstacles, because of religion, because of hoops, because of theology, are making it difficult for people to get to Jesus? Maybe there are people that we know today that maybe aren't vertically challenged, but maybe they're spiritually challenged. You say, what do you mean by that? Maybe they feel like they just don't ever measure up. They're just trying to see Jesus, but we give off this persona, right? We give off this appearance that we have it all together, that we have it all figured out, that we have our lives in order, right? And that we're deserving of this grace that Jesus has given us. And so just by our nature and our countenance, we present this message that you don't really deserve grace and you can't find what you're looking for in a place like this. Maybe the people around us that feel inferior to us, that desperately just want to see Jesus, but we're kind of becoming an obstacle in their way. What gets in the way of hurting people and hopeless people finding Jesus? It really, at the core of it, is self-righteousness and self-centeredness, right? We've talked about this all through the series. So often, what blockades people from getting to Jesus is this idea of a place like this is just for people like us, right, who have it all together, who have it all figured out. Or it's this self-righteousness of just believing that we're better than other people. Well, what best represents Jesus? It's a heart of humility, a heart where we meet people where they are, a heart filled of grace and mercy and love. How does the world know who Jesus is? It's just about simply us just living our lives, letting his light shine through us and his truth shine through us and his grace and mercy and love shine through our lives, right? That's what we're called to do. Look what happens here in verse 4. It says this, so he, as in Zacchaeus, he ran ahead and he climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. So here you have Zacchaeus, this little short guy, who hears Jesus is coming. He can't catch a glimpse of him, so he runs, right? He just wants to see Jesus. He runs and he climbs up in this tree just to catch a glimpse of Jesus. Write this down. He was willing to do whatever it took to see Jesus. He was willing to do whatever it took to see Jesus. In this moment, if Zacchaeus was considered cool, or maybe just a moment having it all together, right, this very distinguished man in this culture loses his cool just to go and see Jesus. Gotta do whatever it takes. In this day, in this culture, in Middle Eastern culture, for you to run anywhere was seen as a sign of desperation. It was a sign of being undignified. Some of you were like, well, dang, man, like I don't like to run anywhere, right? Like, I ain't never going to run anywhere, right? And so I love that culture, right? Because I don't like to run ever, right? And so you'd have fit it right in. And so in this culture, in this day, for Zacchaeus to have left behind his money bags, his scribes, his financial records, to drop his dignity, and to run. And not only just run, but to climb up in a tree just shows this man willing to do whatever it took. Man, I'm willing to get undignified. I'm willing to go outside of myself because I'm just desperate for Jesus. I'm just desperate to see this person. Jesus, got to get a glimpse of him. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever lost your cool because you thought maybe you were going to see a celebrity or like a sports star or like somebody in a famous rock band or a Christian band, whatever it is, like just to get around somebody? You ever lost your cool, got a little giddy, lost your mind, just to kind of snap a picture, get close to them, right? I mean, how many of us have done this before, just seeing someone passing and people just go crazy? I remember a few years ago, me and my wife Becky had gone out to San Diego for kind of a marriage conference for pastors, and we were out there with a bunch of pastors. My brother was there with his wife, and we had taken our youngest son, Keaton, with us, who was a product of a marriage conference that me and Becky had had at one point in our life. And so we brought him with us, and my brother also had his small daughter with him as well. And so we had like a down day, and we thought, well, let's go do something fun for the day. And so one of our best friends growing up in college is one of my friends named Renato, and he lives up in Los Angeles. And we thought, you know, we never get over to the West Coast. Why don't we shoot up to Los Angeles for the day, get up near Anaheim, and why don't we all just go to Disneyland for the day? And so I have like this reward point system on my credit card for Disney World, and I had some points, and I cashed in those points, and I got free passes to Disneyland, and I thought, let's go, we'll make a day out of it. And so we went to Disneyland, and we're there, and we're hanging out at Disneyland, and about midday, we were in one of these stores just kind of hanging out, and we were kind of shopping. As we're shopping, I'm always scanning the crowd. I don't know how you are when you go places, but I'm always surveying the crowd, watching what's happening, seeing what's going on. All of a sudden, I see these really big, burly dudes come walking into this place. And they're beginning to just kind of push people out of the way. I mean, they're just kind of shoving people out of the way. And all these workers are coming in from Disneyland. And they're kind of creating this perimeter, this barrier. And I'm like, oh, snap, dude. Somebody famous is about to walk up in this joint. I'm thinking, the president's here. Something crazy is about to happen, right? And I'm looking around, and all of a sudden, I'm like, it's the Kardashians. I'm dead serious. I'm like, it's Kim Kardashian and all the sisters, right? And I've always wondered, what makes the Kardashians famous? I mean, their dad was an attorney for O.J. Simpson. Other than that, why are they even famous? But anyway, so they're in there, right? And all of a sudden they're in there, and they're just shopping. They're just doing normal life, right? They're not paying attention to anybody. And people are losing their minds. I mean, grown men are losing their mind. Kim, we got a picture with you. Everybody's snapping selfies, right? Now, listen, I'm making fun of everybody, but y'all know I got some pictures too, right? And so right now, while I'm talking, they're going to show you some pictures. I ain't lying in the moment, right? They were there, right? And many of you, you've experienced something like this before. You've been somewhere before where someone famous has been there. You've been there with someone that you looked up to, and you're just trying to catch a glimpse of this person. You lose your cool, you get giddy, you get goofy, right? Maybe around a crush or someone that you have feelings over, right? This is the same type of reaction when we get around Jesus, when people get around Jesus. See, when you see people coming to Jesus, people don't come to Jesus all cool and strutting and keeping it all together. You don't come to Jesus with your chest poked out high, thinking that you're all something. When you come to Jesus, there's this posture of humility. There's this posture of desperation. There's this posture of, I can't believe somebody would accept me and love me for who I am. I can't believe that Jesus is here and that he cares for me and he's got the solutions to my problem and he cares about my needs and he's got the hope that I'm looking for. You don't come with pride. You just say, I just want to catch a glimpse of him. I can't even believe that I get to see him, let alone be in his presence. And this is where Zacchaeus was. He's kind of gotten to a place where possibly he's come to the end of himself. He's got all this wealth. He's got all this stuff. He's moved up the corporate ladder. He's at a place where maybe his life isn't all that he thought it would be. There's something inside of him that seems to be missing. He just gets to a point where he wants to see Jesus, and he just makes this effort. I gotta get to Jesus. I gotta get to Jesus. And what he didn't know at the time is that his effort to see Jesus could never compare to what Jesus was going to do for him. See, Zacchaeus did whatever it took to see Jesus, but Jesus did whatever it took to save and rescue Zacchaeus. See, what Zacchaeus is going to discover is someone like Jesus would give up his very life, die a real death on a cross to save a sinner, a chief tax collector like Zacchaeus. I want you to know today, no matter what you've tried to do your whole life to try to reach God, God has done so much more to try to reach you. No matter how much you want God, I want you to know that God wants you even more. Anything you're willing to do for Jesus, I want you to know today that he's already done and more for you. The very fact that you're here today with just an inclination of wanting to know more about God, an inclination of possibly there being some hope for your life, I believe is an indication of God showing you just how much he desires to reconcile you back to him. I want you to know today there is a grace and a love that God wants you to feel and accept today. An embrace and a love of a God who has been bringing you in, not pushing you away. Look what happens here in verse 5. It says, when Jesus reached the spot, he said to him, Zacchaeus, come down. I must stay at your house today. I love this part of the story. Jesus is just cruising through town, right? All these people have crowded around. This chief tax collector, this sinner, this guy, Zacchaeus, has gotten up in this tree. They've never met before. We have no record of there being any conversation. We see this just in the actions of Zacchaeus by dropping everything just to go catch a glimpse of Jesus. And as Jesus walks up, he doesn't talk to Zacchaeus by what everyone else called him, like, hey, chief tax collector, come down. Hey, you dirty thief, come down. He looks up at him, and I want you to write this down. Jesus knew him by name. This is so important. Jesus didn't call him by his sin or his title or his reputation. He immediately looked up and he knew him by his name. Knew him by name. Now I notice about Zacchaeus, Zacchaeus didn't do anything. He didn't have some altar call where he came forward. He hadn't said any prayers, right? He hadn't made any promises to make any change in his life. All he wanted to do was see Jesus. And the simple fact that he, Zacchaeus, wanted to see Jesus made Jesus stop dead in his tracks. The fact that somebody just wanted to catch a glimpse of him, know more of him, made him stop, and immediately he recognized, this man wants to see me. This man wants to get close to me. This man, of all the people in the crowd, is desperate for me. He's searching for me. He's seeking me out. And Jesus calls him by name and says, come down immediately with you. I want to begin a relationship with you. I want to begin to know you. I want to take it beyond this conversation right here, and I want to go to your house, and I want to get to know you. Now, can you imagine right now if you had an encounter with Jesus, and Jesus said, hey, I want to come home with you right now? You'd be like, oh, snap. Like, I got to get home real quick. I got to clean up from last night. I got to empty out the refrigerator. I don't know if Jesus is going to get on the internet. I don't know what windows I left open. I don't know what's going on. Like we'd be freaking out. Jesus like, I don't care. I don't care about any of that, right? And Zacchaeus didn't have any prep time. He didn't have any time to get anything ready. He's like, I'm coming over to your house today to spend time with you. See, I think sometimes we kind of get going in life, And many of us, maybe this is where we are today. We're kind of on our own quest of life. We're trying to find success and relationships. We're trying to find wealth and meaning and purpose and value. And then sometime in our journey, there seems to be this thing that many of us get on, this quest to try to find God, right? And sometimes for us, God seems like this fleeting person that we can never quite catch up to, that we can never quite get, right? Here's a really cool part, is that maybe Zacchaeus is at a point where he's trying to just race to get up in a tree so he can just kind of catch a glimpse of a passing by Jesus, a passing by person that he can't catch up with. But here's the awesome part about the story, as we see this. Jesus stops. He recognizes him. Jesus stops in this moment, and he seeks out Zacchaeus. See, this is the amazing part about God, right? Is God is both big, like he's big. He's the creator and sustainer of the universe. He spoke everything into existence. He controls everything in the palm of his hands, but he's also really small. He's this intimate God who knows every detail about your life, who can count every hair on your head, who's concerned about everything you're concerned about, who is hurt when you hurt, who's been broken when you've been broken, who's mourned alongside of you. He is this intimate God who knows you by name. This is the God who wants to know you. This is the God who wants you to know how much he loves you and how much he cares about you. A God that will do anything for you, right? A God that will stop in the middle of all the chaos just to spend the day with you because he desires to know you. See, Jesus knew Zacchaeus by name. And I want you to know something. He knows you by name as well. He knew exactly where Zacchaeus was. He wasn't caught off guard. He walked right up to him and he said, I'm here for you. And I believe the same is true for you today. I believe Jesus knows right where you are today. He knew exactly when you need to hear this message, and he has come today just for you because he desires a real relationship with you. See, God knows you like no other, and he loves you like no other. Regardless of what you've done or what you haven't done, regardless of your past or your pedigree, if Jesus wants you, he's going to get you. Jesus knows where you are because he loves you and he cares about you. If Jesus found Zacchaeus, little old Zacchaeus, tucked up in the top of a fig tree, I promise you Jesus can find right where you are today in your brokenness, in your addiction, in your shame, in your guilt, in your sin, in your strength, in your weakness, in your success. He can find you right where you are. He will stop under the fig tree of your life. He will call you by name, and he will begin a relationship with you. See, Zacchaeus wanted to see Jesus, and he got his wish. Not only did he get to see Jesus, but Jesus is coming to his house. Look what happens in verse 6. It says, so he, as in Zacchaeus, came down at once and welcomed him gladly. Man, I can't believe, Jesus, you would stop for someone like me. I mean, surely he's got to think Jesus knows who I am. He knows my reputation. He knows everybody hates me. He knows no one wants to be around me. And he welcomes him gladly. You think the onlookers will be like, this is an amazing moment. The crowd of people, the religious, all the people that were gathered around, you think this will be awesome, but they're not. They do what so many people do. They start saying, well, wait a minute. Who's this guy? I mean, this guy robs from us. This guy's a dirty sinner. He's a tax collector. And Jesus would stop for someone like him? Who gave this joker a fast pass to see Jesus, right? Where do we get one of those? How is he getting the VIP treatment? This ain't fair. How does he get to go to the front of the line? I don't like this. Look what happens here in verse 7. It says, all the people saw this, and they began to mutter. He is gone to be the guest of a sinner. How dare Jesus? I mean, why would he do this? This isn't fair. It's not fair. It's not fair. We've all struggled with this. It's just not fair. I want you to write this down. This is the truth. Grace isn't fair. This is the truth for grace. It isn't fair. It wasn't fair for Zacchaeus, and it isn't fair for you. It isn't fair for me. See, that's the whole point of the story. Grace is most appreciated by those who need it the most, right? The grace of Jesus didn't come for the most deserving. It came for the least deserving. Grace isn't fair. This chief tax collector didn't deserve grace, and this is the reality. We don't deserve grace either. Jesus didn't come for those that have it all together. He came for those whose lives are falling apart. But this is the problem. We battle with two different types of sin complexes. See, many of us in this room, we don't see our lives as falling apart, right? We would be the people who would say, well, wait a minute. Why did Jesus stop for him? I've been going to church my whole life. I've been tithing and serving. I've been doing all these things. Why would Jesus come for someone like that? Why wouldn't he stop and meet with me? And see, we have this complex, right? At some point, we received Jesus because we believed our life was falling apart. And then we've graduated beyond that, right? It's kind of like this idea of like, well, my life is great. My life is perfect. I said that prayer once. I received that rescue once. But now I'm okay. And we forgot. Now, without Jesus, our life would still be falling apart. We need the grace of Jesus every moment of every day. We still need Jesus as much now as we did back when we first met him. And then the other side, some of us are dealing with the sin complex because some of us, we would have never come down out of the fig tree when Jesus called us because we would have said, you know what? I can't come down and hang out with you, Jesus. Look at what I've done. Look at where I've been. Look at my past. Look at the mistakes I've made. Don't you know my reputation? Don't you know what people have said about me, right? And so some of us today can't live into the grace and the relationship that Jesus wants to offer us because some of us have never really experienced that grace to begin with. And so here's the most beautiful part of the story, is that Zacchaeus doesn't have an encounter with religion or a denomination or whatever. He just simply encounters Jesus. And when he encounters Jesus, everything in his life changes. It prompts something inside of him, right? There's this thing about Jesus, when he accepts you, when you feel his grace and his mercy and his forgiveness wash over you, watch what takes place in Zacchaeus' life. It says this in verse 8, but Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, Lord, look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor. Now I want you to remember this guy is a greedy thief, a greedy tax collector, been taking advantage of people. He says, and if I've cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay you back 4 times the amount. See, Zacchaeus has an encounter with Jesus, and instantly his greedy, hard heart is changed. Instantly, he is overwhelmed with generosity. We talked about this last week. So often what we want in Jesus, we want Jesus to heal our symptoms, right? A symptom in your life we talked about last week can be an addiction, it could be judgment, it could be bitterness, it could just be some actions that you've taken. For a guy like Zacchaeus, it could be just being stingy or greedy, right? So when Jesus shows up, Jesus goes past the symptoms. He doesn't start on the outward. We talked about this where you got to clean it up and fix it all up. He goes straight to the inward. He goes right to the source. And so Jesus heals Zacchaeus from the inside out. He starts at the source of his problem. And watch Jesus' response to this revelation that Zacchaeus has in verse 9 through 10. It says, today salvation has come to this house, for the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. I love this story because this story reveals the heart of a rescuer, the heart of a savior, the heart of a friend of sinners that Jesus is. The one who walks to the back of the line, who finds the one that is least deserving, the one that is unexpected to experience the grace of Jesus. And he walks to the back and he gives him a fast pass. We'll call it today a grace pass. And he moves him to the front of the line and he says, in me, through me, you can experience the grace. I'll move you right to the front of the line. Here's the deal. You feel undeserving, but you're the exact person that I came to give my grace and my mercy to. That's what Jesus offers to every single one of us. See, Zacchaeus didn't deserve Jesus' attention. Yet in an instant, he found himself at the front of the line, experienced all the attention of Jesus, all the grace of Jesus, and beginning a relationship with Jesus. Here's the reality today, is that grace simply isn't fair. We got to come to terms with that. There are people in our life right now, there are people that we judge when we turn on the news, people we see at work, on social media, and we look at them and we think, no, they don't deserve grace. We would never say that, but in our hearts we believe that. We see someone who gets grace or someone who gets a pass, and inside there's something inside of us that says it's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair. What we have to do in these moments is constantly remind ourselves that it's true. Grace isn't fair. Grace isn't fair. I don't deserve grace. I don't deserve grace, and someone else doesn't deserve grace either. See, here's what I will tell you. Grace isn't fair to those who receive it, and grace isn't fair to the one who gave it to us. See, here's the reality, is that grace is a free gift. And many of us will walk around our whole lives arguing about a free gift that we didn't pay for, right? We'll talk about how that's not fair. Somebody else gets the free gift. Well, why did you get the free gift? Right? See, grace is this free gift that didn't cost us anything. What it cost is the one who gave it to us. I mean, think about this. Jesus gave it all up. He left heaven and came to this dirty, broken earth this place full of sin and brokenness. He gave it all up. He came to this world to live the life that we could not. He lived a sinless life, and he died a sinner's death, right? He died the death that you and I deserve for all the sins we've ever committed in this life. He did that for you and for me. He gave up his life in our place. You want to talk about what's not fair? That's not fair. And Jesus, in his grace and mercy, came to meet you at your greatest point of need so that you could be covered in his grace, covered in his forgiveness, covered in his grace. I just believe there's somebody here today who believes that you're the least deserving, who's here today who sees yourself at the back of the line. I don't think it's by chance today. I believe that Jesus today wants to move you to the front of the line. He wants you to have an encounter with him. He wants you to experience his grace and his mercy and his love and his forgiveness. He wants it to wash over you. He wants you today to come just as you are. You don't have to clean anything up, and he wants you to step into the grace that he left heaven, came to earth, and died to give you. But you got to step forward in faith today. You got to step forward receiving what he offers you. There is a God today who loves you, who cares about you, who desires a relationship with you, who knows you by name, and he cares about you. He cares about what you're going through. He cares about your struggle. He cares about your pain. He hears you when you're crying. When you think no one knows what you're going through, he knows. And I believe you being here today is a way of him pulling you in with his grace, pulling you in with his mercy. He wants you to feel his arms come around you today. He wants you to feel the rescue mission of his son Jesus coming to this earth. He wants you to know that you're forgiven, that you've been rescued, that you've been set free, and he desires a relationship with you today if you will come to him today just as you are. For those of you today who've already come to Jesus, may this be a reminder to you that grace isn't fair. We've been given this incredibly free gift called grace by Jesus, and we are called as individuals to live in that grace, to show that grace, and to give the grace of Jesus to others. I want to pray for you. I want to pray for you today that this would be a wake-up call for you, that this would be a moment of your life that would kind of shake you to your core of a reminder of the grace that you've been shown and the grace that we're called to give away. And I want to pray right now for the person today who's in need of grace, that you would receive the grace that Jesus wants to give you today. Let's pray together. God, today we are so thankful, God, for your great grace that was given to us. God, we thank you for your mission and your plan to send Jesus to this earth to rescue us from our sins. None of us deserve somebody to come to this earth and die the death that we deserved. But the reality today is that our sin, every one of us, our sin should have kept us eternally separated from you, God. But in your rich grace and mercy, you saw it fitting and deserving to create a way for us to have a relationship with you. And today, through Jesus, through the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus, who died to set us free, we can be covered in your grace today, and we can have a relationship with you. God, I pray there would be people in this moment right now that would receive the gift of grace through your son, Jesus. We ask right now that the Holy Spirit would be prevalent in this place, that it would tear down walls and hearts to people who have maybe put their hard heart up to religion or followers of Jesus or whatever it is. I pray right now that all those hard hearts would come crashing down. And what people would discover today is a God today who desires nothing more than to know them and have a relationship with them. In Christ Jesus' name, amen.